Revelation is the most misunderstood book of the Bible, and the only book of the Bible that comes with a special blessing for those who take the time to read it. So, then, why is such an important testament cloaked in so many allegories? Is there an unidentified design to these oblique allegories? Could the book of the future be encrypted with intentional allegories from apocalypses past? Revelation is reserved for believers who steadfastly study the Bible. You see, for committed enthusiasts, the allegories of Revelation are not stumbling blocks, nor are they subjective in their application. All scriptural allegories are self-defined within biblical text. One is only required to be knowledgeable enough to know where to look to decode Revelation's metaphors. There is no mystery to it whatsoever. The most obvious point of reference connecting this generation to ancient epochs is Babylon. Our civilized world is ready to naively embrace a new Tower of Babel that will bring about all the evils of the first. It will include a new Nimrod, who is now patiently waiting in the wings for his preordained time. The people of the plain chose to not be divided, to live as one people, with one language, with one government, with one collective ambition. They bound together with such collective intensity that they rebelled against God, utilizing a clever repository built in antediluvian times by the progeny of Lamech. With this illicit knowledge, nothing was beyond their grasp. The newfound technology and knowledge was sponsored by the spurious religion, which attached itself to the illicit knowledge. This illicit knowledge and power stemming from the authority of the religion enabled Nimrod to usurp absolute power over the united people of Shinar. It is through this lens that we must critically examine our terminal generation. Babylon is the figurative term confused by so many with regard to end-time prophecy. The confusion stems mostly from ignorance of how to define the context to the allegory. Those who confuse what the end-time Babylon will be generally err on the side of the physical ancient city being reincarnated in the last days, thereby pointing to Iraq's restoration of this ancient treasure. Others tend to err on the allegorical side, where Babylon will become the great end-time world government prophesied to trample the nations. They presume end-time Babylon will be a governmental institution. Both interpretations are partly correct. We must first accept from the numerous biblical prophecies that Babylon will be an end-time city. Prophecy clearly states Babylon will be a city as part of its end-time characteristics, just as the quotation introducing this chapter verifies. The only question is, what city? Will it be an existing city? Or will it be the restored Babylon of antiquity? Or even more tantalizing, will it be a city yet to be built in commemoration of the forthcoming utopia globalists are currently trying to bring about? Because the time of the end will be so short, 7 years, plus a few more additional but precious years leading into the tribulation. I do not believe there will be time to build a new city. With this conclusion, then, we must look forward to Babylon being an existing city. The prophetic Babylon city was defined through 3 ill-famed examples from antiquity. Revelation allegorized this future city as Babylon. Isaiah employed Tyre and Babylon. Jeremiah allegorized Babylon. Zephaniah and Nahum utilized Nineveh. All of these prophets were speaking to the same future city. However, their different allegorical utilization was not meant to be contradictory or confusing, but rather more enlightening with its content. Furthermore, with the exception of John's period of time when he penned Revelation, this future Babylon had not yet established itself as a city on the world stage. Therefore, all of the other prophets had to apply allegories for the future city. John had other motivating reasons to allegorize this city as Babylon. All 3 allegories provide a macro code for the end-time city of evil. Let us first examine the great Canaanite city of the ancient Phoenicians, Tyre. the home of the king Hiram and the infamous adept Hiram Abif. Tyre was the greatest city of the post-Diluvian world with regard to trade. Tyre was famous for its business principles, commerce, seafaring trade routes, which brought products from beyond the known world back to Tyre, only to be reshipped to all the other important cities of the ancient world. Tyre was the marketplace for the ancient world. She became rich because of her ingenuity in business. Tyre made merchants all around the ancient world opulent through the enormous volume of trade they commissioned through her. In an age of free global trade, such a city is necessary to perform like a conduit facilitating the free flow of trade. Such will be the case again in the not-so-distant future. GATT treaties, the World Trade Organization, and many other corrupted United Nations organizations are bent on institutionalizing global free trade. Once this diabolical ideal is both completed and institutionalized, the world will become a total free trade zone, pitting every citizen in the world against all other fellow citizens of the world. The last days will be a time unlike we have ever seen since the fall of the Roman Empire, where free trade was a significant part of its legacy and operational success. This ill-reputed future city of blood will become the center of trade for the world, just as Tyre and Atlantis were in antiquity, a city of commerce that will dwarf New York City by comparison. We know Babylon will be a city of commerce, as Revelation 18:11-24 describes it, where the merchants of the world will grow rich and will mourn at her destruction. Just consider the level of commerce that the city will partake in. The merchants of the earth will weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargoes anymore. Cargoes of gold, silver, precious stones, and pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, and scarlet cloth, every sort of citron wood, and articles of every kind made of ivory, costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cargoes of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh and frankincense, of wine and olive oil, of fine flour and wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, and bodies and souls of men. Babylon City will impose a tribute from all commerce that will take place throughout the entire world. Tyre and Atlantis are the perfect allegorical cities to describe the business characteristics for the future city of evil. The second allegorical city was Nineveh, the city originally founded by Nimrod after the dispersion from Babel. Nineveh was the capital city of ancient Assyria, and likely the most impious of the 7 great world empires of the post-Diluvian epoch: Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia Medes, Greece, Rome, and the future Roman Empire. Assyrians were renowned for their violence through both war and torture, and for their carrying out of mass genocide. They were tyrannical, showing no mercy to their vanquished victims, impaling prisoners and/or skinning them alive. Assyria was the most bloodthirsty post-Diluvian empire, while Atlantis was Assyria's antediluvian role model. Nineveh, as recorded by Nahum, was the city of blood because of all the violence, murder, and torture that took place within those evil walls. Remember, Assyria was the land of Nimrod. The Assyrians were indeed their father's sons. The future city of blood will be regal in its wealth and powerful in its glory, but it will also be reckless in its ruthlessness. By your magic spell, all the nations were led astray. In her was found the blood of the prophets and the saints, and all who have been killed on the earth. Revelation 18:23-24. And he, God, has avenged on her Babylon the blood of his servants. Revelation 19:2. This will be the city where the genocide of the saints will be plotted, a holocaust of the scale and nature not seen before or ever again. Babylon City will vibrate with such a bloodthirsty fever that it will forever be remembered as the true city of blood, paling Nineveh's sins by comparison. He, the false prophet, was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, so that it could speak, and caused all who refused to worship the image to be killed. Revelation 13:15. Babylon will not be the tolerant utopian religion it will profess to be. Rather, it will be the religion of the Nephilim. Babylon will impose a new, unprecedented form of global idolatry through the forced worship of the image of the Antichrist. Babylon is the third symbolic city from applied history, which best defines its characteristics. It was from ancient Babylon and Babel the true inward spirit was derived. J.R. Porter notes, Babylon became the name applied to any empire that was the enemy of God or his servants. Porter additionally views Babylon as the embodiment of all evil, a kingdom of wickedness that is set against God and his chosen people. It was a complete symbol of pride, oppression, wealth, luxury, sexual license, and idolatry. Babel reflected images of the new Atlantis and Sodom in its tyranny, debauchery, religion, and rebellion. With this discussion in mind, let us now divert back to Revelation 17:3-5. Then the angel carried me away in the spirit to the desert. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered in blasphemous names and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand, filled with abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. This title was written on her forehead: Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes, and the abomination of the earth. The woman on the great beast is the mother of all prostitutes, who clenches a golden cup filled with the abominations and her adulteries. Adultery and prostitution were biblical allegories defining unfaithfulness to the true God, while worshiping another god was viewed as sleeping with the local prostitute of choice. This was defined in many parts of the Old Testament, but Hosea and Ezekiel stated it most succinctly. They consult a wooden idol and are answered by a wooden stick. A spirit of prostitution leads them astray. They are unfaithful to their God. Hosea 2:13. Confront them with their detestable practices, for they have committed adultery, and blood is on their hands. They committed adultery with their idols. Then I said about the one worn out by adultery, now let them use her as a prostitute, for that is all she is. Ezekiel 23:36 and 43. The prostitute and adultery images clearly imply that Babylon is figurative for the ancient pantheistic religion spawned by Cain and Atlantis and then reintroduced to the post-Diluvian world by Hermes and Nimrod at Babel. Let us once more read what Revelation 18:2-3 has to say about the nature of this religion, to ensure that there is no confusion. Babylon the Great. She has become a home for demons and a haunt for every evil spirit, a haunt for every unclean and detestable bird. For all the nations have drunk the maddening wine of her adulteries. The kings of the earth committed adultery with her, and the merchants of the earth grew rich from her excessive luxuries. Babylon City will center the future world, harlot religion. Let there be no misunderstanding with regard to this. The other vivid description of Babylon is the word abominations, which filled the golden chalice. Ungers defines abomination as something unclean. The word is used to denote that which is particularly offensive to the moral sense, and is the practice of sins, such as the swellings of pride, lips of falsehood, the sacrifices of the wicked, and the foul rituals of idolatry. This succinctly describes what this great end-time religion will be like. Babylon will be built on lies, cloaked with a glorious and righteous disguise, adorned in beauty, riches, power, and false hope. Babylon will appear to be an enlightened, universal religion, gathering in all the religions of the world, including Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. But it will truly be the spurious, ancient religion of Babylon and Atlantis, which denies Jesus as the Christ and denies God as the true God of the universe. We must not underestimate the power and influence this powerful religion, city-state will exert on the world stage. Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute, who sits on many waters. The waters you saw, where the prostitute sits, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. Revelation 17:1-15. This city-state religion will sit as queen of kingdoms over all peoples, kings, and nations. Isaiah 47:5. She will be a center for global business and the center for the powerful, new, universal religion. Babylon will be an authority unto its own, unlike anything we have ever seen before, opulent in its glory, and wicked in its adjudication of power. The nations will become hopelessly drunk. They will sip liberally and shamelessly from the inebriating chalice of abominations, which will be utterly intoxicating to them, so that they eagerly stagger after the prostitute and their destruction. Babylon will reign with absolute power and control over the nations and peoples, their commerce, and their religion. We can determine the city and where its religion will be centered. First of all, let us consider the time of the writing of Revelation, the reign of the Roman Empire, which was ruthless in its oppression against those who dared to rebel against her or those who dared to criticize in any way. Any writings that might be interpreted as rebellious or critical in any way against Rome were hidden beneath a veil of codes and a shroud of secrecy. To the Jewish people, these codes were known as pashur, in which allegorical names were applied to sensitive places and names, hiding the true meaning from the Romans and Roman sympathizers. The writers in Judah drafted Babylon as Pashur for the city of Rome. As you will recall, Beresus recorded Babylon was an allegory employed by Chaldean priests for Atlantis, and Frank Joseph believes the Bible employs Tyre and Babylon as an allegory for Atlantis. Perhaps this is allegorically so, but most certainly, the selected Bible passages were definitive prophecies for the future end-time Babylon. The future allegorical city of Atlantis in the New Age and the new empire of Atlantis destined for the last days will, in truth, be the city of Rome, known figuratively as Babylon. Finally, Revelation presents a more detailed definition of who the future Babylon will be. This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. Revelation 17:9. The only city in the world that rests on 7 hills or mountains is the city of Rome. Rome will be the global capital city for both business and religion. It will center the future utopia, which will house the institutions for world government and obligatory cooperation. Rome will provide the location from which the future world government will govern, housing all the essential global government institutions. Babylon will be Rome, capital of the new, future, revived Roman Empire. Isn't it an intriguing anecdote of historical coincidence that one church of global nature is already seated on 7 hills in a city-state? This city-state, also known as a universal religion, is of course the Vatican. It is not equally intriguing that Catholicism, by literal definition, is defined as universal, thereby translating Roman Catholicism as the universal church? One should then expect that something utterly diabolical will forcibly stake its beginning within Catholicism, and then will spread to incorporate all other religions of the world, thereby becoming a true, inclusive, universal church. I am not indicting the current Catholic Church as the future harlot religion. I am merely stating that the future harlot religion will be spawned secretly within in the holy confines of Catholicism, through an evil usurping of its power from within. Rome is indeed the future Babylon city.